Welcome to the Shields on Hoops podcast here with Nick Peckham it's been a while, all right, about a week off here. Syracuse enjoying the fruits of their win over Georgetown, allowed some focus on football and all the wins they're having lately as well. So it's been a good week. It's been a fun week to be a Syracuse fan. A lot of positivity. There hasn't been a ton of positivity around both programs in a while. So, I mean, this is just – I'm always proud to wear my gear, but I felt a little more hop in my step wearing all my gear this week. And the Orange, after a break, they hopefully got to wrinkle some things out and work on some things the last week or so. And we see a couple different new things from them. I would expect nothing crazy, but I'm sure something different, or maybe a new set or two, or just something different from them this week. This weekend, I'm sure. We're coming to you guys on Friday morning when we're recording this, so if something happens between them, don't blame us. Our numbers are going to be from Friday as well. So, real quick about Oregon. We'll talk about all these things in more depth. Pretty small team. Okay, a lot of guards, a lot of 4-out. Their bigs aren't super dominant, but they are athletic, and their bigs are big. They're 6'9", 6'10", but they're not, guys they really throw the ball into in the post. They're more kind of finesse guy. One of them's a finesse guy, one's a banger. But they are very guard heavy. Their guards are skilled. They shoot it well. They shoot it selectively. And they take pretty good care of the ball. So it's a well-coached team. They're down 3, 4, maybe 5 dudes that would probably be in the rotation. So they've had some guys had to step up. They've got a top-notch freshman who's still out. They've got 2 bigs who are 6'11", 7 foot who are out. So that's kind of why they are small right now. So we'll dive into all that a little bit later and see how that matches up with Syracuse. But Nick, I'll give you the floor to get things tipped off for us. What are your kind of thoughts about Oregon? How do you feel Syracuse matches up? What do you think you're going to see from both sides? And I mean, just open form on it for me. What you got?
Yeah. First, I want to start off-topic Syracuse basketball, but congrats to Mike Hopkins on getting a huge upset win over this. I think it was Saturday or Sunday. Washington beat Gonzaga for a huge upset, so congrats to Mike Hopkins on that. Obviously, he was with Syracuse forever. He was waiting his turn. His turn never came when he thought it was, so he took a job and ran with it. But on to the Oregon-Syracuse game. Like you mentioned, Oregon is very small. They are missing 3 guys who would probably be maybe starting, at least 2 starting, one as their 6th man. So that's kind of why they play small now until they can get healthy. But like you said, they have very good guards. They don't really turn the ball over at a high rate. They're seniors and juniors. They've been through this. They know what college basketball is all about. So it won't be a walk in the park for Syracuse. It's also a neutral game. They're not playing really at home for either team. I think it's a Syracuse home game, though, like on the box score sheet. So not sure what that means, but it's at a neutral site. We'll have 8 days off before they tip off on Sunday at 1 o'clock. So hopefully this week in practice, they really got after it, kind of ran through some wrinkles on what they noticed that they need to work on. Hopefully some offensive sets, out of bounds sets, things like that, just to kind of keep the flow of the game moving. But expect to see kind of what you saw against Georgetown. Small lineups, Malik, a lot of Malik at the 5. Obviously, JJ and Judah playing. Chris, Justin, Quadir, they're going to be huge. You may see a little bit more Kyle Cuff in a game like this because of how small Oregon is. But just expect to see not much McLeod. Not sure what we're going to get from Hema. They did mention after the game against Georgetown, he's had lingering back issues. That's kind of why he hasn't played a lot. He came out and said that it's been tough to stay healthy with like these little nicks and knacks every now and then. But from what you hear from the coaching staff and the players around him, he's a great teammate. He's always positive no matter what happens. So it's always nice to have one of those guys on the bench. And I won't bring him up, but there's another guy on our bench who could play a huge role in this if he comes locked in. But, yeah, I would expect to see a lot of Malik at the 5. we were talking off air before this that Chris Bell and Justin Taylor will probably have size advantages for most of the game at their positions. So that'll be a unique wrinkle because they really haven't had that this season too much. Justin's been playing out of position at the 4 a lot. So they'll be able to get shots off easier and maybe go into the post and draw some double teams or things like that. Just kind of add a different wrinkle into the offense.
Yeah, and I mean Syracuse isn't huge, but they have length at like they got positional they got positional length, right? Like so they got guard long at the guard spot, long at the forward spot. So like they kind of make things a little bit difficult for teams that maybe are a little bit smaller. Again, Syracuse is not a team that's going to throw it inside and go to work and do that. But finding other ways to use their length, I think, is definitely going to be important, right? So, so talk about Oregon, how they play. Like we mentioned before, a lot of small ball, a lot of four guards out, one big in. That big looks at some ball screens. They do a good job. They do a great job spacing the floor. They're selective. Like, so they're one of the better 3-point shooting teams, I think, or they're a solid 3-point shooting team, but they're also pretty selective about it, right? So like I think they are in the top 50 or 60 in 3-point percentage, but they only take like 1/3 of their shots are from 3. So they take good shots. They swing it. They're a well-coached group. Like Dana Alton does a great job. He always has everywhere he's been. He's a good coach. So they know who they are. They know what they're trying to get done. And they know that, hey, look, again, the roster's the roster, and they're going to try to optimize that the best they can. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of that so far. They don't have any huge wins. Okay. I just had open forums here. I don't have any huge wins, but they've kind of played a similar-ish schedule, I feel like, to Syracuse. Maybe ours has been a little bit tougher. They have the win over 83 Georgia. That's when they had all their guys. They beat 173 Montana by 14, 251 Tennessee State by 25, 323 Florida A&M by 13. They dropped one to Santa Clara on a neutral floor. They lost that one by 6. A little surprising there. Santa Clara is 139 right now. And then they also lost to number 10 Alabama by 8. They beat Michigan at the buzzer. They beat UTEP by 22. And they beat Cal Baptist by 21. UTEP and Cal Baptist both like top 200 teams, so decent mid-major-ish team. So I mean, they've been taking care of business. They probably should be, based on their schedule, 8-1. They're sitting at 7-2. After they play us, they got Kent State, and then they dive into Pac-12 play. So that's kind of how they roll. They kind of like are just pretty good at a lot of things. Like they're not great at a ton of stuff, and they're not bad at a lot of stuff. They're just kind of pretty good at most of their things, right? So like they're 45th they have the 30th most efficient offense, the 57th most efficient defense. They're 58th in the country in taking care of the ball, which is a big one when you're playing Syracuse, because that's how we get so much of our stuff. They're not great on the offensive glass, 163rd. They get to the free throw line a decent amount, 101. They are number 31 in 3-point percentage, number 101 in 2-point percentage, 323rd in free throw percentage. So these dudes have not been shooting well from the line. They're at 64.8% on the year. So, yeah, they don't if they get there, they have not been knocking them down so far this year. And again, like I said, everything else is just kind of basically the only other stat that really stands out to me is that they are 31st in assisted field goals defense. So that means, if you look at that number, that brings you to the conclusion that a lot of guys score off the bounce against them rather than they give up buckets off the bounce rather than off kickouts. Right? So they pressure the ball. They're not going to help off shooters too much. They're going to make you score and hit tough twos. That's what they want to do. They want you to hit pull up twos. But that's kind of their jam, right? That's what they want you to do. They want to clean up the glass and do their thing offensively. Right? They're not gonna like when you watch Syracuse give wide open threes because they overhelp so much. That is not what Oregon's going to do. Like Syracuse will get shots, but it's not going to be. It's going to be up to guys to finish going to the rim a little bit, which Fortunately for Syracuse, they have some guys who have been able to do that and have been doing that all year, right? And there's not going to be a ton of resistance inside, especially if you can play Malik and kind of get him out, get the bigs out of the paint and not just camp in there. There's not going to be a bunch of resistance inside. So I think that's a really good thing for Syracuse. And when you compare Morgan's style of play to the way Syracuse kind of plays. They have, as far as players, like, I mean, I'm looking at their numbers here. It's just they all kind of play well. Like, they don't have like a super standout. They don't have a stud. They don't have any of that. Shelstad is not afraid to play. Is not afraid to put it up. But they got 3 guards, 6'4", 6 foot, 6'4", and they all kind of play differently. Like, Kusnard's very efficient. Shelstad's more flashy. He's pretty tough. Aquindo is a freak. He's super athletic. He's like Paul Harris in a 6'4" body, like, kind of guy. He's like a little more skilled probably too. But and like, they all, I don't know, they all kind of like, when you if you haven't watched them play, I've seen them a little bit. You haven't watched them play and you look at their numbers, you're like, oh, they all look the same. Like there's not like a lot of gaps between. Like, they all shoot like 2 or 3 threes a game. They all are 6 foot to 6'5". They all are kind of athletic, and they all take good shots. Like there's just nothing like that. There's no dude for them that really stands out with these injuries, which I guess they're kind of buying into. Like, this is small ball, this is how we play, and we're going to roll with it. So that's kind of the synopsis on the Ducks as far as what they kind of got going on offensively.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch Oregon for the past 10 years, under, I don't even know if Dana Altman's been there. It seems like it's been 10 years. It could be a little bit longer, but they're always going to be a team that competes. They play in the Pac-12. I know a lot of people don't know much about the Pac-12 because they don't play their games technically most nights till 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night. So if you're on the East Coast, you're not usually up watching Pac-12 games. But they're gritty. They're one of those teams that when they usually get into the NCAA tournament, and when they do, they can make a run because it's the same things we talk about all the time with guard play, right? Or when you get to the tournament, is having very good guard play and having bigs who they not necessarily have to score, but can affect the game in other areas. And that's usually what Oregon has for the most part. So they're not gonna be an easy out. And I think the game is it in South Dakota or North Dakota?
So yeah, Sioux Falls.
Yeah. So like it'll be interesting to see because it's a neutral site game, the fans for each team and who kind of has the advantage in that. Obviously, Syracuse fans travel very well. We saw that at the Georgetown game. Granted, it was in D.C., but from what you heard, it was like 70-30 SU fans at that game. So obviously we travel well. We had a lot of fans in Maui when we went to the Maui tournament. I would have loved to go to Maui.
Sure.
Not even for the basketball part, but that would have been a plus. But the fan attendance will definitely play a huge part. Who can kind of get their team going? But recently, it seems like Syracuse has trended in the right direction. Since we got back from Maui, obviously we had that clunker at Virginia, which at the end of the day, you kind of put in the back of the film room and move on from that. But I mean, that's been their only loss since they came back from Maui. And it seems like every game they're starting to figure it out a little here, a little there. And then that Georgetown game, like we talked about, was probably their most complete game of the season, start to finish. So obviously the trending topic, the direction is heading up. Now it's on them to keep it going up and not kind of take that. You don't want to take one huge step forward and then 3 or 4 steps back. And now you got to figure it all out again.
Yeah, I think this game is a really good opportunity for Syracuse too. So I think Oregon's going to be better as the year goes on. So if you can get this win, when they're a little banged up, right?
Yeah, you get this win. You finish out your non-conference with Niagara, and then you jump into ACC play with Pitt.
Yeah, if they get this one and then Oregon gets better as the year goes on, that becomes a really big neutral court win, which is awesome. It's a great resume thing. If you're thinking, if Syracuse is trying to sneak into this tournament, which nobody thinks they are, like if they're trying to make that move, like getting a win like this on a neutral floor against Oregon's probably going to end up finishing the top 50 in the country on Ken Palm at the end when it's all said and done. They're 39th right now, I think. That's a great opportunity for them to
39th as of right now.
Get a win they might not typically get, like a win they probably wouldn't be able to get in February if those guys are as advertised that they're. Again, I mean, you take 3 starters off this team, what would this team do? Right? You know what I mean? Like you take.
And I know like one big thing that everybody talks about is I don't know if Alan Griffin was on the Eric Devendorf and Chris Joseph show on Wednesday, and one big thing that he said is they love that they can go deep, right? They can go, I mean, fully healthy, this team can go 10, 11 deep, and not many teams in the country can go that deep. And that's one thing that Syracuse and their coaching staff loves about this particular team. But like you mentioned, taking 3 guys like that off of this team right now, you're hurting this team more than anything at the end of the day. Not many, like, there's not many teams in college basketball right now that could take 3 guys of that caliber, like you said, a 6'11", 7-foot guy and the 21 ranked high school player coming out into this year in college and still be 7-2. And while losing to Alabama and then having a clunker against Santa Clara, who's not horrible, but when you take those 3 guys who are probably 3 of your top 7, maybe 8.
Yeah. Are we beating Colgate and Cornell without 3 starters? No. So
like I'm not necessarily saying
that's the equivalent to it.
Judah and JJ are their starters, but you're taking guys like if you took like a Malik Brown, Chris Bell and a Justin Taylor out, then where you see what I'm saying? Like that's it. Not many teams can take 3 losses like that and move forward with it.
Which is why I think they're going to be pretty good once January and February roll around. Which is going to only if Syracuse can get this win is only going to help. And even if Syracuse loses, it's not going to like kill them as far as rankings and it's a game. Again, here we are. It's another game they're supposed to lose, right? Like. So far Syracuse has won all the games they're quote unquote supposed to win. They've lost all the games they're quote unquote supposed to lose, right? Except maybe LSU. I think LSU they're supposed to lose that one based on like Ken Palm. I use Ken Palm, but like I think the odds makers had Syracuse by 1.5 for the LSU game. So anyway, they've won the games they're supposed to, lost the games they weren't supposed to, or they were supposed to. So I mean, I think that's a good kind of. Again, there's a chance to potentially get something out of there that is going to be a win they might not have gotten, which I think is big. And again, going into the ACC play would be huge because they're going to beat Niagara, right? So they can snag this one. Going, what was that 4? That'd be like a 3-game win streak where.
And you would have won. So like if you win this game and obviously you beat Niagara, you'll win 6 of your last 7 with Virginia being that only loss. So like. Obviously, like I said, you're trending in the right direction. Thank you. You're trending in the right direction, and it's looking good, right? Like we mentioned in the Georgetown game, it was the first time all season where you felt like Judah and JJ were really, really, really on the same page. Mm-hmm. Like they were both like they knew when it was their time to attack. They knew when to get other guys the ball. Like it really felt like. And one thing I do want to mention also. But I do want to piggyback on what you said about games that they're supposed to win and games that they're quote unquote not supposed to win. Mm-hmm. You just hope that like those 3 games, obviously Virginia, Gonzaga, and Tennessee, help Syracuse in the long run. Like those are games where we played great competition. And like obviously when you look back at watching the game, Syracuse hung around with Gonzaga and Tennessee for more than 50% of the game. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of fell apart at the end. But those are games where you hope that, like, now you come into a game like Oregon, who's 39th in Ken Palm. And, I mean, technically, Syracuse is probably supposed to lose this game by 10+. I don't really know what the predictions are for that. But, like, you hope that those games that you've already played come into this. So you walk in and you're like, all right, well, we hung around with Tennessee. We hung around with Gonzaga. I mean, Virginia was a different story. You hung around for like 10 minutes and then it kind of got away at the end of the first half. But like you hung around with these teams and you showed that you can play with this type of competition. So like this is why this game could mean so much more at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it'll probably be 5 or 6 Oregon as the spread. I think it'll probably be something like that. But when you look at like, I mean, yeah, sorry. So I think it'll be like 5 or 6 probably for Oregon on the spread on this one, just because they're still going to be. I don't know. I think if you're in Vegas, and I know you know the numbers and the stats, like you also kind of like you said the way both teams are kind of trending here. And yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of question marks, but it is an interesting matchup. It's a little bit different of a matchup than Syracuse has had so far this year. So
I feel like it kind of like with Oregon having so many injuries to key guys, 7-footer, 6'11", 6'8", Mookie Cook, like I feel like it kind of Oregon playing small at this point in the season plays more into Syracuse's hands than it normally would, because Syracuse, obviously at the beginning of the year, you would have said, oh, playing a small team. But now that like it seems lately like, and unfortunately for Naheem, his minutes are getting cut, Malik's are going up, and like now we're more apt to play. Like you'd rather play Oregon, like you said, now with this team than later in the season when they have a 7-footer and a 6'11" guy and a 6'8" incoming freshman who was 21 and ranked 21st in the country. Like I don't trust Naheem, and nothing against Naheem, but right now at this point, I don't trust Naheem on the floor.
yeah,
So like playing, if you have to play Malik at the 5, this would be the type of game where you'd be like, okay, I'll take that 100% of the time. So like it really kind of plays into Syracuse's hands a little bit more than it normally would, which is definitely a huge advantage and a key. I think obviously I look at it like I think moving forward for the rest of the year, I think Syracuse's biggest X factors moving forward is the play of Malik and the play of Copeland. Truthfully, like because you know what you're going to get from JJ and Judah most nights. You know what Justin and Chris are on the floor to do. They're on the floor to shoot the ball. Justin's out there for his defense and his rebounding, since that's gotten clearly better as the season's gone on. Like, you know what to expect from most guys. But if we can get anywhere near the play that we got from Malik and Quadir like we did in the Georgetown game moving forward, it's only going to take this team to another level, I think. And I'm not, like you mentioned it, like getting the 14 points from Copeland, that was just a plus. It's the energy and the aggressiveness that he brought to the floor that I think everybody else kind of played off of.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we all know what Copeland can be for this team. It's just he hasn't been able to do it consistently. So we'll see. Again, we did this, but we did all right. So we did this last year with Bell and Taylor, like every game. It's like, oh, and Benny, every game last year. Oh, they finally figured it out. And then the next game would come and it would be a dud, right? Like I remember multiple times last year. Oh, Chris Bell's finally arrived, or oh, Justin Taylor's finally got it, or oh, it's finally clicking for Benny. Like this is the Benny Williams game. This is the Chris Bell game, right? Like, and we had those conversations multiple times last year, and guys were just unable to kind of string together consecutive or 3 or 4 games where they played solid. And again, I don't think Copeland's going to go 14 and have highlight and do that. Like, that's not what I mean. But like
the biggest thing that I want to see, that again, like you mentioned, that last year when it was the Benny or the Chris Bell or the Justin, like it was never consistently, and it was always one game here, one game there. But like the difference I want to see this year is not so much like have they figured it out, just playing with that same type of aggressiveness and getting after it. Like this, like I told you, this team kind of looked different. Like you wouldn't see Chris Bell last year get in a dude's face and start yapping. It wasn't happening last year. This year, it felt different, right? And like a lot of the guys that like got, and I hate to put it this way because they're college dudes, but like a lot of these guys got hyped for each other. Like you saw the Copeland dunk, you saw the Malik Brown putback dunk, you saw JJ and Judah kind of getting downhill and dumping it off for layups and things like that. And like when Hema came in, he had that putback dunk at the end of the first half. Like you saw guys get hyped for each other. And like that's what you want. You want these guys to gel. And the more that you trust each other on the floor, the better it's going to be.
I've enjoyed, just a side note, I've enjoyed being like the coverage from like the team social media accounts being a little more like involved in like
Yeah.
stuff going on. I've enjoyed that. Just as a personal anecdotal as an
Well,
observation.
one thing I'll throw out there is, like I mentioned, Alan Griffin was on the Devo and Chris Joseph show the other day, and one thing that they asked him about was, we've talked about it on our show. You know how like it seems in some games like after a made bucket or as they're dribbling the ball up court, like Judah will call JJ, give JJ the ball, and kind of go to the corner and they'll run plays. Alan Griffin said that's not something that the coaches installed. It's something that Judah and JJ came to them and asked if this was okay, if they could kind of move positions on and off. So to see those two guys kind of figuring each other out and like wanting to do this just means so much more.
I like that too, because that gives both of them opportunities to like come off screens. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like it's like I've said 100 times, like if it's just you up top dribbling by yourself and there's 4 guys around,
Where are
the
you
floor,
going most of the time?
too easy. It's too easy to guard. It's just defenses are too good, and it doesn't matter who you are. Like it's just going to be tough, right? But if you can get a couple of things where you are catching that ball on a reversal instead, like it's a different thing to guard. Like it's like people always think that, you know, if you play 5 out, it's easier to drive. That's not necessarily the case, because if you think about it, man, if you're playing 5 out, like that allows guys in the corner to really sink in. If you play 4 out and spread it out and go like slots and corners, and you have a big that's up either high post or opposite ball on the block, like that just gives you more space. That being said, right, like Syracuse doesn't play 5 out, but that being said, like giving those guys opportunities to come off screens and like come off a stagger or off the ball and just catch it and go, or catch and rip opposite, like I think that is really important, and that gives defense. It just makes them tougher to guard, like I said, because it's just too easy when they're just pounding a hole in the ground and there's nowhere else to go, and 4 other guys are just watching them kind of play.
Yeah.
So be creative with how they do things like that. I think it's awesome. So I think that's a great sign. And again, like it takes time for guys to, sometimes it takes guys time to gel to play together. I feel like.
And one thing I will say about JJ, right, is like a lot of people expected him to come in and take off right away. But the one thing you have to realize is he came from a program where they were very senior oriented last year. They had a very bad season for Notre Dame standards. And like JJ didn't really, I won't say fit per se, but he seemed out of place at times. So you have to realize he's now coming home. He's playing in front of friends and family. He's playing next to a guy like Judah, who he didn't play next to at all last year. And he's learning these new guys. So like it's gonna take time, and like we're only 9 games into the season, guys. Like take away Georgetown game and we were 8 games into the year. Like I know a lot of people wanted to hit the panic button on JJ, but like it was just gonna come down to the more work they put in together, the more practice time they get with each other, the better they're gonna play. And like obviously like in the exhibition games we talked about, like Judah missed a game. So like they didn't get that second game to kind of play together, where JJ played point guard for the entire game that night. And then like going to Maui and things like that. Like you guys, they lose practice time with things like this, like days flying out, days flying in. They were over there for Thanksgiving, so like I'm sure they didn't practice that Thursday, Friday. And like now that they have this time where they have 3, 4, 5 days in between games, that's more practice time to get together and things like that. And now playing on the court, and like I hate to say it this way because I know it hasn't been like what we've wanted, but playing in some of these close games, like the Cornell game where they had to come back, or the Colgate game where it was kind of close to the end, like that helps them in the long run. Now they're in these pressure situations together early in the year. So hopefully later on in the season, like look at how many games last year where there was 4, 5 games where it could have went either way, and it makes or breaks Syracuse's season. And like maybe if they win 3 of those 5 games, now they're in the NCAA tournament. And then you know what I mean? Like the North Carolina game last year when RJ Davis drew the charge on Judah, questionable call. Obviously, I'm a Syracuse fan, but that game, or the Miami game where Judah kind of drove to the rim and turned it over, and we ended up losing at Miami, or even the Wake Forest game where we lost on the 3-pointer in the ACC tournament. But there was games like that last year where we hung around for most of the game, but we just couldn't make those little plays at the end to kind of get us over that hump. So having these close games, I know a lot of people hate it because you want to blow Cornell out by 20 or things like that. But it's just going to help this team in the long run more than it has hurt them, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And as far as JJ goes, again, we'll see. Right, like JJ had a great game. We'll see what happens on Sunday. Right, like hopefully that keeps together. Like I think we're all optimistic and we're feeling good about it. But we'll see. Like right, because like he's done the same thing that those guys did last year, where it was like, okay, he had a good night here, and then it kind of like just falls off. Like I think JJ's been fine. I've been pretty pleased with JJ's shot selection. I think he probably took a little too many threes earlier on in the year. I think he was turning it over a little bit too much. But like other than that, I've been pretty pleased. I just thought shots weren't going in. Like I've been pretty pleased for the most part. Like there've been some silly turnover games, but I think he's starting to settle down in that. And again, he's like Quadir. Like I feel like he's a guy you have to play. If he's not turning it over, like you got to play him.
And some of his turnovers, I feel like it's trying to make too much out of a play. It's trying to turn a good shot, like when you get in the lane, you can use your floater or something like that. Turn a good shot into a great shot, but the great shot's not really there.
100%. Yeah, I definitely think a lot of it is just trying to make a play. Like trying too hard is a thing. Like that's a thing. Like you can try too hard.
And one thing I think that JJ's been great at, and another thing we didn't have last year was I think he's been phenomenal on the defensive side of the ball. He's also taking pressure off of Judah. Like even when shots aren't going in, now when they press you or they kind of do a light little press against you, it's not just last year. It was just give Judah the ball and clear out.
Well, last year we're being pressured. He's throwing it to Chris Bell. Yeah. Right. Or I mean, Joe's fine, but it's like, those guys are in different spots now. Like you have, I do think Joe took some pressure off Judah last year.
Yeah, 100%.
Different with JJ because JJ is like, I don't know. I don't know if Judah took more pressure off Joe or Joe took more pressure off Joe last year.
So this is
are complementary. Like they just kind of play the very similar type styles.
Yeah. This is no disrespect to Joe, right? But like when you look at like big moments in a game or when you need a bucket or late in the game, you can give the ball to JJ and JJ can get downhill and go make you a play. Where last year, I don't think Joe was going one-on-one making a play for somebody. You see what I'm saying? So like you knew last year the ball was going to be in Judah's hands. Where this year, it necessarily doesn't have to be in Judah's hands.
That's what I'm saying. You got two guys who can go get a bucket, and I've been saying that all year. Like we got two
and
guys.
That's no disrespect to Joe because that's just not who Joe was.
Joe can shoot the hell out of the ball, and JJ can't, right? And that is important too. Like you know what I mean? Like that is important too. I've been saying it. Like we've got two guys who, when you think about them, right? You've got two guys who can go get a bucket, who can get to the rim, who can score from mid-range. Although I haven't seen a lot of Judah mid-range this year. It's all been at the cup or kind of from three. He hasn't taken a lot of pull-ups this year.
A lot of his mid-range is pump. Guys get, for some reason, like you mentioned last week, again on our Georgetown post game, like jump, and guys will jump at you, and then you go to the free throw line. So
it's unbelievable to me because I know they watch film. It's just unbelievable to me. I would lose my mind. If I was coaching, I'd lose my mind. Like if you fell for a Judah men's pump fake from three, I would lose my mind.
But it's crazy. So like Alan Griffin and Eric Devendorf are talking about Judah and like how his points have gone up this year. And like one key thing obviously is getting to the free throw line.
Yeah, sure.
But they're like, even Chris Joseph, they're like, if we got to the line as much as Judah got to the line, like, I mean, the dude's getting to the line anywhere between 10 and 15 times a game. So like when you really break down, like I think Judah's averaging, hold on, I'll look right now. It's up on my phone.
While you're doing that, when they get into conference play, you have to think that coaches know each other well enough and teams well enough that they're like, that number's going to have to, that has to drop, right? There's no way that's a sustainable
number.
What?
8? But still, I mean, 8 is still good, right?
Great. 8's great. But like, that's, I mean, if he gets to the line 12 times, that's stealing 2 made buckets basically in a possession, which is huge.
Right now, Judas averaging 20.1 points per game. So, like, when you really think about it, like, even Judas' big games this year, like he had his career high against LSU. He's had a couple 20-point games, obviously. But, like, when you're getting to the line 15 times and you go 13 of 15, like, if you score 24 points in a game and you're getting 13 of those 24 from the free throw line, that's only 5 buckets. And like 5 buckets to Judah is nothing with his athleticism and getting in the open court and things like that. Like,
but they're free. Like he didn't have to earn the bucket. Like,
and the big thing is, right, is usually when you see Syracuse teams and we go to the free throw line, it's dudes that can't shoot free throws that go to the free throw line. Right?
Okay,
like,
so let's do numbers, right? So right now Judah is 46% from 2. All right. So that means let's say he makes half his twos. Okay. So he'd have to shoot 10 more to get 5 points. Let's say he goes to the line and scores 6 points from the line, right? Like that's 3 made twos. Okay. So to get that, he'd have to miss 3 other shots in the half court. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so 3 for 6 from the field is 3 missed shots, but 6 for 6 from the line is 0 missed shots. It's saving possessions, and I mean it's just it's ultra efficient. It's just super efficient. So I am kind of I don't know. So he's made 70 free throws. He's made 44 twos. He's made 13 threes. Right. So 44 times 2 is 88 points from 2. He's got 39 points from 3. So that's wild.
Yeah. And like, obviously, like you said, that number's once you hit ACC play, that number will probably go down. I mean, there'll be games against certain teams where he may go to the line 12, 13 times, but like against Duke, North Carolina, like teams like that, like you may go, I mean, 8 is still a great number. Like if you go to the line 8 times and you go 7 of 8 from the free throw line, like that's a great game for most guys. Like
70 of his 197 points have come from the line. So you're talking more than 33% of his points are from the free throw line, which is crazy. And some of those are and ones. Most of them are not, or end of game situations. So and he's shooting well. I mean, like you said, he's shooting He's shooting 79.5. Like
79.5, yeah.
And like I saw some chart the other day about guys who got fouled the most. He's up there with Edey. Like he's up there like with how much he gets fouled. He's up there with like Zach freaking Edey. Okay. So like
that's insane.
You guys are just like clinging to and hanging on all the time. So I mean, it's a beautiful thing to watch. It's free points. It's free points, which is also great. He's been great, and I'm hoping that continues. But we'll see. You got to imagine that those practices from opposing coaches leading up to the games are like, just let him put it up on the rim. Like just make him make the shot. You know what I mean? Like make the dude make the tough shot, and we'll live with that. Because if I'm coaching against Judah, I'd rather him make a bunch of tough twos than just live there by himself shooting free throws like he's out in his back freaking yard. You know what I mean? Like no way. Like it's crazy. But all right, cool. You got anything else you want to share about this Oregon game? I mean, well, anything else on your mind?
I don't. We'll just go. Obviously, like we said, it was a very, very quiet week in college basketball this week. There was from Monday to from Monday to Friday, there's 3 ACC games total. Duke ended up winning. They beat Hofstra. NC State beat UT Martin. And then Louisville lost to Arkansas State. Funny thing about Louisville, I'll just share real quick. I think I sent you the tweet, or maybe I think I texted you about it. But like one of Louisville's recruits that like didn't kind of wants to get out of there. He was actually sitting in the stands watching the Louisville basketball game on Wednesday. So like when you think our program might be a little down, just remember we're not as bad as Louisville is right now. And it's crazy to think because when you look at Louisville's coaching staff, I mean, you have John Calipari's #1 recruiter for 7 or 8 years of his career, who Kenny Payne, who is from Louisville. You have, and then I know they added I think they took Nolan Smith from Duke, I think is over at Louisville now. So like they have the dudes on their staff. Obviously, it's not translating. But around the ACC for this weekend, North Carolina plays Kentucky. That's going to be a huge game. 5:30 Saturday on CBS. Miami takes on LaSalle. LaSalle is 8-2 on the year. That could be a sneaky, interesting game. Obviously, Miami is kind of trending downwards right now, as opposed to upward. Georgia Tech takes on Penn State. Pitt plays SC State. Notre Dame, Georgetown. Obviously, who knows?
Clemson. I'm curious about that one, at least, like just because, that one's interesting to me. I know I don't really care, but like that one's pretty interesting to me.
Clemson plays at Memphis. That could be another great game. Vermont, Virginia Tech, Northeastern Virginia, SMU, Florida State, NC State, Tennessee. Could also be another intriguing game. And then obviously Sunday, Syracuse plays Oregon at 1:00. And I don't know how many care, but Louisville plays Pepperdine. They might lose another one. We'll see. But that's around the ACC this weekend. And if anybody's interested in any kind of college basketball tonight, because it's been such a, I won't say crappy week, but it's been a down week for college basketball. UConn Gonzaga tip off at 10:00 tonight on ESPN2. That should be a great game. Obviously, Gonzaga is coming off upset loss to Washington last weekend. And UConn's 9-1 and doesn't look like they've missed a beat from their championship run last year. So that could be another interesting game for sure.
Yeah, I think UNC Kentucky is really interesting. I think Clemson Memphis is really interesting too. Upset alert though. 133 Vermont versus Virginia Tech. All right. I don't know if
Vermont's pretty good this year, right? From what I've heard.
133. Padula, the point guard, was hurt in their last game. So I don't know if he's back. If he's not back, that's because Tech, they struggle with Louisville, by the way, when they play their one conference game. It must be nice to open up with Louisville in the conference, not UVA. But
this is like the third time in like the last 6 years, I think I've read that Syracuse's first ACC game is Virginia.
They launched like the ACC network in that game, like against Syracuse UVA, like that, like November game.
Where was the first game of the year at the Dome?
Like they launched the ACC, like it's just brutal, man. But
and I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, it was like a 42-37 game, or it was like crazy low scoring for both teams.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So and look, Florida State SMU is an interesting one too. Future ACC member, SMU's number 80 in Ken Pom. So there's a whole bunch.
NC State, Tennessee.
Weekend. Yeah, it's a really interesting weekend. I mean, a lot of good hoops.
And that's just ACC. I mean, obviously, there's more. I didn't look top 25, but obviously, there's probably some other big games this weekend. Top 25.
Oh yeah.
Shout out, because I'm from Syracuse. Obviously, shout out St. Bonaventure. Charles Pride, who went to Liverpool, and Micah Adam Woods, who went to Syracuse. He went to school out in Syracuse. They play FAU tomorrow at 4:00. So that could be a fun game for them. You got LSU, Texas, Kansas, Indiana, Baylor, Michigan State,
Arizona, Purdue on Saturday.
Arizona, Purdue, Texas A&M, Houston, Alabama, Creighton.
It's giving Feast Week vibes.
BYU. Speaking of BYU, they are 9-1 on the year, and former Syracuse recruit target Marcus Adams Jr. Is nearing his debut, I think, from what I've heard.
Oh, he's not. He hasn't played.
I don't know if he's played yet this year, or he was hurt and he's coming back, something like that. I don't know, but they're 9-1 on the year.
I'm sure he's tweeting and Instagramming about it, whatever it is.
And just one more thing for Syracuse fans. Obviously, after Sunday, we play Thursday the 21st. That game got moved to 5 p.m. because Syracuse football is in their bowl game on Thursday night. I think that kicks off at like 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure the dome is packed for
the
that game.
basketball game got moved to 5 p.m. so it wouldn't interfere with the football game.
That game was.
It's just something that.
Go ahead.
If you're going to the game, just know it got moved. If you don't know,
sorry,
don't show up at 7 because if you show up at 7, game will be over.
That game was about to be the least attended game ever. Students are out. It's bowl game night. Same time. You're playing 326 Niagara. God. Like,
I mean, the only reason, listen, I will say one thing. The only reason why it would have attendance that, like, you wouldn't I know you say like nobody. Greg Paulse is the coach of Niagara, and he's from the Syracuse area, so like he would have friends and family in attendance. But like that would be the only reason why it would look like there was people there.
That's great. But all right, I think that wraps us up. Enjoy some hoops this weekend. Hopefully, you have a good Friday and Saturday of basketball, followed by a nice Syracuse win on Sunday. What's your prediction, real quick, before we get off?
I don't know. This is tough. Obviously, I like the way Syracuse is trending. They're definitely trending upward. It's tough. I think, like you said, I think if there's any time you're going to play Oregon, it'd be now and not in February. So I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm going to say Syracuse by 4.
I'm going to go Oregon in a close one. My head says Oregon in a close one, but my heart and knowing the way things are going right now says maybe Syracuse finds a way to get it done.
Syracuse by 4, and I think people are going to be surprised. I think it'll be like.
I think it's going to be a good showing regardless. I think it's going to be a good show.
Low 70s, high 60s, like kind of game, like 72-68, 73-69, like something like that. Because I feel like with how small they both want to play, they're going to try to like. Syracuse's one advantage in any basketball game they play this year is going to be getting up and down. Obviously, our numbers don't show that right now, but obviously getting up and down is probably the one way Syracuse would like to play. So I think they try to. Oregon doesn't turn the ball over a lot. They're like top 50 or 60 team in the nation at not turning it over. It's going to be interesting to see. I know like that was one big thing we talked about in the Georgetown game was like they offensive rebound and shot threes very well, but they turned the ball over a ton. So like Syracuse and fast break points, and we ended up winning that 20-2. So I do think that I think it's going to be close. I think it'll be a great game, honestly. And I think it's going to come down to like the last like 3 minutes of that game and who kind of separates themselves from the pack.
That last media timeout, maybe. Yeah, I mean, Oregon shoots it well from 3. They take care of the ball, but they don't offensive rebound super well. So I mean,
the way the season's been trending for Chris Bell, after he has a very poor outing, he comes back and has a very good outing. I don't know if that we're only 9 games into the year, but it seems like every time Chris Bell has a poor outing, he bounces back.
That'll be an interesting graph to make. Yeah, right, just like performance from game to game.
But
all right,
but like we mentioned, Syracuse will have the size advantage on most dudes, so it'll be interesting to see how they play that.
Yep. All right, so Syracuse tips off at 1 o'clock against the Fighting Ducks of Oregon in Sioux Falls. So you guys enjoy a neutral game. Could have NCAA tournament type vibes, just because both teams are not really there. Like it's not like you're playing in Albany, right? Or you're not playing in Portland, right? Like it's just like it's a legit neutral. That's about as neutral as a spot as you
can't really get much more neutral.
It's pretty like I wonder if you plugged into Google what is halfway between Syracuse and Eugene, what it would be. I mean, I feel like it's going to be probably close to Sioux Falls. So maybe they did it on purpose. I don't know. There's another game there earlier this year because they're trying to like make this place like a destination type place. There's another game earlier this year. I can't remember who it was, but anyway. We're going to stop talking. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll push this out to you guys Sunday morning probably, or Saturday night at the earliest. On behalf of Nick Peckham, we're out of here. Have a good weekend, and like, share, subscribe. do what you do. Catch you guys Sunday or Monday for the recap. Thanks, guys.